Welcome to Now and Forever, a series of 10-minute reflections on good news spirituality, sponsored by the Charles and Catherine Free Family Foundation, headquartered in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and brought to you from Our Lady of the Sacred Heart Parish here in Watertown, in New York. Here with me, as usual, is Vicki Phillips. Hi, Vicki.
Hi, Father.
And also a member of the choir, both of them, Pat Henry, but he's also, what do you do? You're director of the
Confirmation
Project. Okay. Now, what we're going to do here, we're going to be talking about evangelization now. We find with all this stuff up to here about spirituality and all kinds of things, was really to get to this point where we'll have a rehearsal of that too. But we want to talk about eventually evangelization and then family evangelization. So that's where we're at. But now, if you want to talk about evangelization, you have to understand Vatican II. Because Vatican II, the purpose for Vatican II, according to Paul VI, who was the guy who actually organized all those 16 documents, the definitive purpose of Vatican II was to enable the church, or to equip the church of the 20th century to proclaim the gospel to the people of the 20th century. That's what it was supposed to do. Now, we're going to take a look at this. We'll go through what this says here. I think this is really maybe I'm going to have to go to notes here sometime, because this is a skim. I mean, this is a light treatment, and I want to make sure we understand this, okay? And you can ask questions and whatever. So now, the way this text runs here, it's preceded by a remark that was just around the time of Vatican II was very popular, where the guy says, don't confuse me with the facts, I got my mind made up. So you make up your mind, and then it's like that one thing you got
fill in the blank.
What thing that senator said? She says, "Well,
you got to pass it before you read it."
Yeah, right. That thing, then you got to pass it before you read it. I mean, this is kind of ridiculous thing when it comes to. Of course, now I guess what this says here might be qualified. Here, let me read the text, okay? It says, "Not counting the Bible, when it comes to misunderstandings and misrepresentations, both as to purpose and content, nothing comes close to the Second Vatican Council. This may look like or sound like an overstated claim. But consider this one singular fact. In calling for the council, Pope John XXIII mentioned a need for updating the church, in Italian aggiornamento, which might be interpreted or taken as a call to get with it, to update the church, to bring it up to where the world is today. Now, the problem is, a lot of people that's where they stopped thinking. We're going to update the church. They didn't ask why. And that's where the trouble began. Now, a lot of people thought, Vatican II was called because the church was in crisis. The church wasn't in crisis. Really at that time, surely maybe 4 years before, Vatican II was called in 1958. 90 days after John the 23rd became Pope, he called the council. I think it was in about 1956 or somewhere around there. I used to talk about the organization man and all this stuff. And they had a study or a survey as to which was the most the well-organized and a functioning, operating well organization in the United States or in the world. And the church came in first. Ma Bell came in second. Now here, the church was in crisis. It was ridiculous. It hadn't been in better shape in 4 centuries. But now, when you got your mind made up, then you don't want to look at the facts. They figured here, what they figured was the update to church was to make it look more acceptable to the intellectual elite or to the world, and not be so old-fashioned in a sense. They hold on to these beliefs. They wanted to change the beliefs, and instead of the Vatican II was called that we would be updated, not the church so much as the sense that we were going to be converted and equipped to really bring the gospel to the people of the 20th century. So now, I'll go back to this text here. It says, there was some other reason, clearly expressed in the Council's opening message to humanity. We urgently turn our thoughts to all the anxieties by which modern man is afflicted. Whoa, that's what the heck was about. We're going to turn our thoughts to all the anxieties by which modern man is afflicted. Christ's love impels us. For, quote, he who sees his brother in need and closes his heart against him, how can the love of God survive in him? So right there in that little sentence, you really see that's a deep insight to what Vatican II saw the world in crisis, and what the Pope wanted to do was bring the truths and the sense of purpose of the Church, for humanity to bring it out of this crisis. Now, the final question here, the final question in this opening thing, we'll switch on to another one shortly, but here's the text again. Unless you realize that Vatican II was called out of love and concern for humanity, you're bound to misinterpret the council. You think it's going to do is just to reorganize the church and make it look nice. It wasn't about the church. The church is not itself, it's a means to an end. And this was to focus the church on the purpose for which the church exists. So at its conclusion, just to see how this really was what it was all about, the words of Pope Paul VI confirm this truth. The church, so to say, has declared herself the servant of humanity. Now suppose I told you, Vicky, that the Vatican II was the church declared herself the servant of humanity. Had you ever heard that before?
No.
Pat?
No.
No, absolutely not.
No, and that's exactly what the purpose is. In fact, the earlier part of that quote there is all of this rich teaching, and there's about 106,000 words in this document, 16 documents. All of this rich teaching, Paul VI said, has meaning only insofar as it addresses the concerns of our sisters and brothers in need. And then he goes on to, that's the quote what is quoted here, the church, so to say, has declared itself the servant of humanity. So the update was to help a world in crisis and get the church on the job, in spite of having been rebuffed and persecuted for centuries by the very ones in most in need of her help. But some will say, I got my mind made up. Don't confuse me with the facts. And those are the facts. Now, when we go forward here, I think the thing to understand or keep in mind is that when people did start looking at the council, there was the church went into a period of introspection and self-examination. And what happens if you look at this in terms of we'll probably discuss it a little later, but you look at it in terms of a human being who has, let's say, a nervous breakdown. Okay, yeah, I got a nervous breakdown. So now, what you do is, if you were a psychologist, you'd try to see how this person can cope with all these pressures and whatever. But for a spiritual director, what you would do is you would bring that person back to a sense of identity and purpose. To say, really, let's understand, who are you and why are you? And then to study and reflect on that. Because what happens is that person who is with this nervous breakdown has kind of like I don't know who I am and all that, and that sort of thing. So that
More of an identity crisis, I guess?
Well, it's like that. But now what happens is, in this period of introspection, you become more introverted, you lose your sense of purpose, you start getting conflict, and this is exactly what happened in the church. We'll see later on why and how and when. But the fact is that if you lose sight of the purpose, you're going to have a nervous breakdown. You have to have the why. The why is all what spirituality is about, and the why is all what life is about. All right, Pat, take us off in this Apostolic Spirituality of Vatican II.
Oh, here's a complete paragraph taken from the opening message of the Second Vatican Council. Coming together in unity for every nation under the sun, we carry in our hearts the hardships, the body and the mental distress, the sorrows, the longing, and the hopes of all the people entrusted to us. We urgently turn our thoughts to all the anxieties by which modern man is afflicted. Hence, let us our concern swiftly focus first of all on those who are especially poor and weak. Like Christ, we would have pity on the multitude, weighed down with hunger, misery, and lack of knowledge. We want to fix the steady gaze on those who lack the opportune help to achieve a way of life worthy of human beings.
Very good. Now, this is where we're going to stop and take this whole thing up again in our next session. But that is a complete paragraph from the opening message of the Second Vatican Council, and really sets this is what it was all about. To come together in unity from every nation under the sun and to address the needs of humanity. Thanks very much for tuning in. We'll see you very soon. Take care. God bless.